A Deepness in the Sky by Vernor Vinge. So this book was copyright 1999, and Vernor Vinge won the Hugo Award in 2000 for this book for Best Novel of the Year. Now, he had previously won the Hugo as well for a book called A Fire Upon the Deep, and this came out first, and I read this. I did a video review of this book on the channel. I'll leave a link to that. But this book came out after that, and it serves as a bit of a prequel to the events that happened in A Fire Upon the Deep. But now, after reading both of these books, I can safely say you could read one of these books without the other. You could read them in any order. They're very loosely linked, and there's really just kind of one main character that shows up in both of these books or is talked about quite a bit in these books. So this is a very vast, big book. It's over 800 pages. This copy I have is just under 800 pages in a paperback. There's a lot of this going on, so I'm going to briefly just talk about the setup of this book. I'm not really going to go into the plot too much because it would just be too long of a video. And then some of my pros and cons, because I'm a little mixed on this book. There's some aspects I really liked, and there were some times that it was really a struggle to get through this book for me, but I'll tell you why in a minute. But Vernor Vinge has just this vast scope that he can create, and he does this amazing amount of space world building or galaxy-wide world building. So in A Fire Upon the Deep, there was a lot of talk about these zones of thought. And you can go back and watch that video review. I try to explain that. But in A Deepness in the Sky, we don't really hear much about these zones of thought because humanity is quite a ways in the future or in the past from when A Fire Upon the Deep happened. I don't know exactly like the year, but one of the big things that happens in this book is an alien race is discovered. Now, there was a little excerpt in the book. I'll try to remember this if I can remember this right. But they said that humanity had kind of been traveling outside the solar system for around 8,000 years. And this alien race they found is only the third aliens that had ever been discovered. One of them had been extinct long, long ago, so they kind of don't count. And then another alien species had been discovered, but they don't have any technology, really. They were very primitive, and they didn't really talk about them much. But this is a discovery that could be sentient alien entities that have reached a technological point that they could maybe start thinking about leaving their planet. So this is a big deal. And humanity, spread out all over the galaxy, has kind of... They use this group, I don't even really know what to call it, but they're called the Cheng Ho, and they're merchants, but they're more than that. They kind of help distribute culture and information, and they kind of have set up some rules in a way, but they stay out of political ideals and all of that, and they've kind of taken on this kind of weird thing with humanity where they are kind of running things in a way. Now you also have a group of emergent humans that we don't really know what happened. They probably went through some cycle where they kind of almost annihilated themselves and had to start over, and they kind of re-evolved in a different way and kind of have some different things going on than what the Cheng Ho are used to seeing with humanity. So there's some interesting things going on there. Now, this alien race, one of the most interesting things about this is this planet goes around a star that is kind of dormant for a little over 200 years and hardly any light or heat is radiating out of the planet. And then it comes on for about 40 years and it keeps going through these cycles. And humanity had noticed this star for a long time. They've been keeping track of it. And they kind of discovered there could be some life around one of these planets. And they knew the star was getting ready to come back on after being off for like 200 years. So the Cheng Ho set up this group to go investigate this planet as the sun's going to awaken and kind of see what's going on with these aliens. And these aliens are kind of like this spider-like creatures. Now, also at the same time, this emergent human civilization who aren't really part of the Chang Ho, they hadn't really had much contact with them, but they had been eavesdropping on all the information the Chang Ho had been distributing. So they see this as an opportunity as well, and they travel to this star, and they kind of meet up with the Chang Ho around the same time. They beat them there by a little bit. And that's kind of all I'm going to go into the setup and plot for. Now, what happens is very chaotic and crazy and very hard to predict. And the beginning of the book is a lot about that. And it's very engaging. I love the beginning of the book. It sets up so much. Now, the rest of the book is kind of just around this planet for the next 40 years while the star's radiating light, and you kind of are stuck here during this 40 years, and then the book kind of wraps itself up as the star's getting ready to kind of go dormant again. So that's kind of the timeline of this book, and there is a lot that goes on. Like I said, I could spend hours talking about all the plot things that happen in this book, but I'm not going to do that in this. So overall, this was a really good book, but at times I really struggled through it. And thinking back on it, I think one of the problems I had with it, because I do think this is a very idea-driven book, there is some twists with the plot, there's some neat things that happen. There's one character that is very interesting, but yet very mysterious. So there were really no characters that I really cared a lot about in this book. And during some sections, I did feel a little bit like work to get through, especially when it comes to the middle of the book. We spent a lot of time down on this alien planet, seeing what these alien spider-like creatures were up to, and that was fascinating. I liked a lot of that, but even them, there was just nothing that really kept me caring too much about what was happening to the characters and the aliens. So that was the biggest struggle for me. Now, there was also the antagonist in this book who was maybe overly evil. There was some weird things thrown in that kind of got into the creepy territory, but it was nothing that really, put me off too much. The hardest part of this was just getting through a few hundred pages of the middle of this book. And I mentioned this before when I did my review of the Mars trilogy. There was just times where it felt like it was work, and I likened it to outdoor activity, kind of saying that it's type 2 fun when you're really not enjoying it, but when you look back on it, you're going to look fondly on it. So while there was some parts of this book I didn't really enjoy reading, I'm definitely going to look back fondly on this book. This is easily a 4-star review for me. I think if it was maybe paced a little bit differently or something, and I was invested a little bit more in the characters, it would have easily been a 5-star. But I'm really glad I read it, really enjoyed it. And eventually, I think I'm going to take a little break, but maybe in February there was some other booktubers talking about kind of wrapping up this loosely based trilogy with The Children of the Sky. So I think that book's about half the length of A Deepness in the Sky, so it shouldn't be so rough to get through. I'm looking for some shorter books coming up to kind of get back into my rhythm. Not to say it almost put me in a reading slump, but there was times where it was a little struggle to pick up and grab the book. But I think what I'm going to read next is Hot House by Brian Aldiss. And this will be, I think, review 35 in this series that I'm doing, The Masterpieces of Science Fiction. And that puts me at the 25% mark. So look for that one coming out next. And thanks for watching.